Thank you for the introduction, David, and it's an honor for me to be here, and thanks again for the invitation. So today I'm going to talk to you about time reversal and what does that have to do with a future user experience. You're probably all thinking that I'm going to come up with a machine to travel back in time. Well, I wish that was the case, but it turns out we really can't run life processes backwards. We haven't really invented a way of moving the arrow of time backwards. However, if you record processes in a medium, such as a movie or an audio signal, if you reverse that in time, then you actually obtain very interesting consequences. For now, let's just imagine, let me tell you about the two consequences that are most important. One is that if you use time reversal with waves, just like when you talk on your cell phone, you can actually focus signals in space. So let's say I'm in an office in a building, in room 412, and I want to communicate for security reasons only with a person in a different building in room 500. Wirelessly, I'm able to send a message using this technique, time reversal, and only that desired target, that person, will be able to hear my message without the possibility of being intercepted. So we call this a sort of form of space or physical encryption. Some of the applications are, imagine that you're in this auditorium, and we have three people here. We have Ting, David, and Marta, and then John is the speaker. And this is the UN, or this could be this auditorium, and each one speaks a different language. So John's want to focus and connect with Ting in Chinese, and wants the signal to focus in Chinese just at his seat, and to not interfere with the person next to him. David speaks English, so he wants to focus a single signal there. Imagine also in a car, you're listening to only your radio station, and you don't want to hear somebody else's sound. And then Marta speaks Spanish, so she wants to focus her signal right there. So that's one possible application, that you think we are able to control light and created laser beams, just like a light bulb broadcasts light, but we're now able to get a laser beam so singular and so particular that we can actually perform eye surgery with it. Similarly, we have the most eternal marital fight about the control remote. So imagine if you have a TV set, and here we have the husband who wants to watch his West Ham United game, and then the wife wants to watch her Sex and the City show. And each one, both the audio and the video, will focus exactly at the specific location, and no one would hear the other signal or see the other signal. So I just gave you a little bit of a taste of what can be achieved with sound control, and we'll talk about time reversal in a minute. But I'm going to take you through three techniques that are being used now, probably you're familiar with one or two of them, to control and direct sound. The first one is acoustic mirrors. The second one is going to be holosonics, which are speakers that I brought one here and we'll do a demo. And the third one is using time reversal, which is the technique that I worked on. So first, acoustic mirrors. This mirror is actually in England. They were pretty famous during World War I, and they're made of concrete, and they're very large structures, about 19 feet in diameter. And basically, they were used to collect the noise from the enemy airplanes as they came along. They were, of course, much slower than airplanes today. And they were collected by this convex shape, which then had a microphone in the middle. So then all the sound that was collected was focused at that location. So either there was a person standing there with earphones and then advising everyone there's an airplane or there's a ship coming over before the attack came, or you had a microphone that amplified the signal. There's one in Kent and another one in Yorkshire. Holosonic sound. This is a very cool technique. It's pretty novel, and it's a company called Holosonics, and they call this the audio spotlight. What they did, Dr. Pompey developed a way of communicating with sound by beaming ultrasound signals. So it turns out that humans can hear somewhere around 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Those are the frequencies that are audible for normal human beings. However, anything below that is infra sound, and then anything above that is ultrasound, which is a lot higher frequency. So the waves are a lot smaller. The higher the frequency, the shorter the wavelength. Because of that, I can beam it much easier because ultrasound forms a very tight beam. Imagine like a laser beam. So I'm able to localize and beam a sound signal. Now, of course, we can't listen to ultrasound, but he figured out a way of making that ultrasound interact with the normal air molecules, and there's a nonlinear interaction that converts that sound, the ultrasound, which is only a carrier wave, and once it beams at your seat, at your specific location, it converts into audible sound. So why don't we do a demo and test if this works? I'm going to actually beam some salsa music for you, because I'm from Mexico, and in honor to my country. So what you're going to see, we have these, inside here, we have an ultrasonic beam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show the speaker around. Hopefully it'll work, and only the people in the line of sight to the speaker will be able to hear something. And as soon as I turn the speaker away from you, you'll be able to hear nothing. So let's start. Ready? Okay, I'm going to start that way. Sorry. I think that's the maximum. Is it working? Are you guys? Is it interfering? Is that better? Okay, cool. So basically, these speakers work, and you can imagine all sorts of applications for them. You can imagine, for example, a person is walking in a supermarket and is standing next to an aisle, and you want to beam a specific advertisement or message to that person. I actually saw a very interesting ad for a movie, Supernormal, and when people are walking in Soho in New York, there was an ad for a movie, and it would beam sound to a specific location, telling people, you're hearing voices. We're watching you. It was great because people didn't really know where the sound was coming from. So you can imagine holosonic sound has a bunch of incredible applications. So people are using that. And now I'm going to talk to you about this esoteric term, time reversal. So what do we mean with this? We definitely don't mean running live processes backwards. What we mean is if we record waves, in this case, so sound waves are anything, when we speak, as well as our wireless phones use electromagnetic waves. So let's say I initially say the word hello, and I just send it out. What you're first going to get is the H, then the O, L, and A. If you time reverse that, that only means reversing it and getting the A, L, O, H. It's just like running a record backwards. You put first whatever you receive last, as easy as that. We do that with the word hello, but we can also do that with an entire audio signal. Time reversing it would only mean turning it around, flipping it, and getting whatever I recorded last, getting it first. So why is this important? This is important because the consequences of that are twofold. One is that by doing that with waves, by virtue of sending time reverse signals, and you'll understand why in a second, they actually end up focusing at a desired location. The second consequence that's important is that you can actually get a signal that has a lot of echoes, like in a reverberant place here, or when you're talking on your cell phone in a building that has a lot of echoes and the signal is bouncing with walls and windows. You can actually compress that signal to a very short pulse. So there is a reduction in what engineers call inter-symbol interference, which basically means that another signal is coming in and it's degrading the quality of the one you're listening to. So how does that work? I'm going to show you a movie here. So first, we have the time reversal phase one. So if I want to communicate with somebody in the audience, say with you, I don't really know yet how to only direct my signal to you. So I need to train myself and study how that signal, that sound, will get refracted and reflected from all the walls and people and chairs on the way from you to me, because it will get affected very different from any other location. And once I know that, I'll be able to time reverse the signal, and because the wave is going to go back through the same path as it came in the beginning, the same reflections and refractions that it came on the way to you from me, then of course, imagine it as tennis balls, right? If you first send me a tennis ball, that's called a line of sight, and I catch it. But then, more tennis balls start appearing because they're bouncing with the wall. So the next one will be that tennis ball bouncing with that wall and arriving at me, and then bouncing with that wall and arriving at me. So I get 2 tennis balls. The next bounces will be 3 bounces, and so on. So you can see how we record a lot of these bounces of an audio signal with all the walls at a specific location. So what you can see here, this is a room, and I'm going to show you a computational simulation looking at this auditorium from above. The green is the lowest level of volume. So it means if it's green, it's silent. Anything red means it's the highest volume. So that's when you have the most sound concentration. Here we have, again, John that wants to communicate with specific seats in different languages. So first, John has to learn how the signal arrives to him from Ting, David, Marta, and Dana. So let's see what happens in the forward phase. I send a tiny pulse from John's location. He's a transmitter for now. And he's going to emit just a small pulse, a blip. And that blip is just like saying the word hello, for example. So as that blip, you'll see, this is the room, and we're seeing the volume is the red. So we can see how waves, just like in a water pond, are traveling and are bouncing back and forth and mixing with each other all across the room. So what they're getting is they're learning the physical properties of the room. Basically, I think of it as every frequency like a ruler. It's measuring. So the very low frequency waves are like a very large ruler, and they measure big things, like that door is 2 meters, and that a panel there is 4 meters. And then as the frequencies get higher, the rulers measure more granular stuff. So you can measure, the little water bottles and the chairs and things like that. So as they measure that, each one of those 4 detectors, the 4 people there, was receiving and recording their own audio signal of whatever bounces were arriving there for a much longer time. Okay, so that's what we already trained John. He already knows how the signals get to him. So now we're going to the second phase, which is backwards. What John is going to do is what Ting, David, and the 4 receptors are going to do is they have those signals that they recorded for a long time. The simple thing they're going to do is only to time reverse that. So simply what I showed before, they're just going to flip that. Whatever they received last, they're going to send first. And they'll send that back into the environment. So we're going to see how that happens. And you see each one started at a different spot, and it's just time reversing, and naturally, by virtue of the physics of it, all the waves are retracing back their multipaths, and what's going to happen is, as we expect, that all of them are going back, and they will refocus back at the original location, which is back at John. There we have at time 0, exactly at that time equal to the recording time, they'll focus on that specific location. So this is just sort of a plain vanilla experiment. So the forward phase that I showed you just trains the emitters or the transmitters, which are those 4 triangles there. And once that's done, then I can have a communication established that will only focus at the desired location. So what happens in time, if I actually record at John the signal in time, at any other time that I'm sending the time reverse waves, there's nothing but little noise. I won't be able to listen to a thing. But if I tell you that in 30 milliseconds, you should check right there with your cell phone, you're going to see that exactly at the time that we recorded, we arrive at the original signal. So whatever I sent was received back. So this seems pretty simple, but why is this fascinating or important? So it turns out that in time reversal, not only do you focus signals in space, but something that's counterintuitive, which is the fact that a lot of obstacles would hurt and degrade the communication channel, actually helps you. Because the more bounces with little things and random things in the environment, the more it angles the wave and redirects it into so many other directions that are sort of searching and measuring and collecting information about the room so that they can focus even better. So how do I establish the communication? Going back to the auditorium here, the forward phase would be, John is going to be the transmitter, and then we have 3 receivers there. So in the beginning, both transmitters and receivers are just one microphone that can both send and receive signals. So in the beginning, we just have the forward phase, and then we have one blip from that person, and it gets captured for a long time here. A second blip from that location gets captured as a different signal, and a third blip that gets recorded for a long time. That's it. That's the forward phase. Then John, the speaker, is already trained to be the transmitter. What he does is he time reverses those waves in the backward phase. So he time reverses those channels, and then he sends them back. When he sends that one back, it'll only focus back at the original location. When he sends that one in another language, it'll only focus at the original location for that one. And finally, the same thing will occur with that. Now, that's only one blip, but that's the carrier wave. But you can also send multiple messages, an entire conversation on top of that carrier wave that will only focus at the desired location. This is not just something we did theoretically. We actually carried out this experiment in Toronto, at the University of Toronto in Canada. So I went with my colleagues, and it looks like a complicated graph, but all it is a map of the University of Toronto. And I was standing with my colleagues. We planned this in 3 buildings, location A, B, and C, and in specific floors of these buildings. And we took our equipment, and we also had other people stand in different floors that we had said we were not going to communicate with. So we ran a time reversal scheme, and we were able to communicate with all the cars and buildings that could have been obstacles in 3 kilometers of distance. They were actually helped focus the signal. And let's say for emergency reasons or during a terrorist attack or something, I only want to communicate with the head of police who's standing in that building. I was able to singly locate a signal at the desired target. So like I said, the incredible thing about time reversal and why it's a superior technique is that normally in an empty room, we would focus in a beam, but it's a little bit of a fatter source. So I can focus, but maybe there'll be a little degradation. Say somebody next to you may be able to hear a little bit of the sound. But the more randomness or little obstacles that I put in the room, then the sharper the focusing will be. And this is very important for the further techniques that we have. So for example, we use time reversal for underwater acoustic communications. So let's say you want to beam a signal to the friendly submarine, but you don't want the enemy submarine to be able to intercept it and decode it. So you want to focus it very specifically. So what we did is we have a boat here on the left-hand side for you, and all those little white dots are a bunch of microphones or transducers that are dropped into the water. The red means it's high volume, and the green and all that is lower volume. So what they did is all the way to the right, where it says time reversal signal, the source sent an initial pulse, and that one traveled around 45 kilometers, which is a very long distance. And imagine in the ocean, you have a lot of randomness, like the temperature changes, and it makes sound travel at different speeds. You have all the currents and things like that. Still, so this array captured all the signals, and then it time reversed them, sent them back, and the signal was able to focus at the original location, again, 43 kilometers, and it lasted for more than 24 hours. So even if the currents were passing by, you would still be able to communicate. After that, it gets degraded. Another interesting application is lithotripsy, or kidney stone destruction. Now, hopefully nobody has had to go through this procedure, but I'm told that they put in a scope in the human body and they have to actually look for the location of the stone, and that apparently is quite painful. So this time, imagine embedding the patient in a belt that has a lot of microphones or transducers. So then I send a signal, and by virtue of the fact that the kidney stone's composition is quite different from any of the surrounding tissue, it becomes a scatterer. So it scatters the signal and it sends them back. Then I time reverse them and send it back, and I proceed to do this several times until the signal gets louder and louder, and I start localizing where exactly the kidney stone is. After that, I just send a shock wave with a lot more energy that focuses exactly there, and it kills the stone without damaging any of the surrounding tissue. Another application is detecting cracks in materials like airplanes before they cause any damage. And so finally, the thing that I want to show, and this is almost my last slide, is that we have 3 technologies to be able to control sound. And a comparison with all of them shows that time reversal is able to not only create a communication channel 2 ways, but also uses randomness to focus better. Finally, I know there are a lot of technology and early adopters here in the audience, and I'm sure you're going to come up with great ideas of where to apply this. For myself, I want to go back to New York and do naughty things with the speakers. So, for example, one of them that the person did is at a library at MIT. So we're going to see. Oh, I guess the audio is off. But he's basically beaming the sound to that woman there saying, "You're sleeping, don't sleep in the library." And basically she has to wake up and she's all concerned. So that's it. Thank you very much for your time.